you have a gut feeling that something is off, yeah, but you get dissuaded by, the society in terms of, give it time. Sometimes even our own medical practitioners also just tell you, give it time, give it time. So I would tell parents, for starters, trust your gut. You'd rather go and be told there's no issue than to have a wait and see attitude.
Not a disability, but a ability.
Hi, mummies and daddies. Welcome to Not a Disability but Ability podcast. I'm your host, Obonyiwe Liepile, mother to an amazing child who's neurodivergent and who's also on the spectrum. So today I'm joined by a fabulous mummy we met on TikTok. She's all the way in Kenya. Yes, so neurodivergency is not a South African thing only, it's a global thing. So hi mummy, can you please just introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, where you're from, and tell us a bit about your kids.
Thank you so much, Bonge. My name is Sheila Masasabi. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm a mother of three amazing neurodivergent children. One is 9 years old, and the other are 4-year-old twins who are on the spectrum. Besides being a mom, I also work around health and human rights and gender. And also, I find myself in a space where I work on disability rights. And so that's probably in a nutshell what I am and what I do. Yeah.
Thank you so much for honoring the invite. And I feel blessed to finally see your face because usually you hide
I
it.
know. No, I don't hide it. I'm just not for those who for those.
Okay, so let's take it
Yeah.
back
Okay.
to
Yeah.
the first child, the 9-year-old. Getting the
Mhm.
diagnosis, what did you see or notice that made you realize that your child might be different?
Well, to be honest, I think like any other first-time mom, what of course came out clearly for us was the delayed speech, and of course the fact that he was not at par as where the peers are. But like any other society, any other parents, we get to be told that boys are like that. Give them time and so on and so forth. It was not up until we were at, I think, the 2.5 year appointment that the doctor pointed it out clearly that maybe we might that and referred us to an assessment, because then he felt, he might be probably just a speech issue, but this is a bit worrisome, because then the speech should have come by now, because other milestones he had hit. But then when it came to the speech, that's where we had a gap. And so as a mom, of course, you have a gut feeling that something is off, especially when you have other kids around you. But also as a new mom, you hope for the best, because then autism is not the first thing on your mind because of the speech delay. Yeah. But that was the first thing that probably was very obvious to us about him. Yeah.
And then were you aware of this thing called autism before?
Not aware in the sense that you don't know what to do, but I'm aware in the sense that I've heard of it. Yes. Like I said, being in the health and human rights space, you get to hear about forms of disability. But then I think it being brought home is a different ball game altogether. Yeah. Knowing that it is in your house, knowing that it is your child, that's a whole different ball game. So yes and no. Not the first time hearing of the word, but the first time experiencing it and getting to live it. Yeah.
And then take us to the day you received the official diagnosis. How was it? How did you feel? And what kind of thoughts went around your head at that time when the doctor officially tells you that this is the diagnosis?
You see, amazingly, it's one of those things that probably you can't describe, because I can say it is a mixed feeling. Because one, having a hunch then means that you're being assessed for something. Yeah. So there's an expectation of there'll be a diagnosis, but then receiving the diagnosis, the whole thing altogether, because then, yes, you knew you were being assessed for something. The assessment is towards something, but being told the words and the confirmation of the diagnosis, that was, I think, devastating for me. Much as I wanted to know what the issue was, much as I wanted to know, and finally we have an answer of why he's delayed. There was a lot of, I'll say, a lot of grief on my part. It was a lot of grief, yeah. And through all the stages, because I recall the very, very day, the process here is that you're assessed through steps. There's a day for tests, there's a day for a hearing test. So you've been going through all these things. But then on the very day that I was told that then this is the diagnosis, and that day I was alone with him, I I drove all the way home crying. I cried all the way home. I remember that very well because it was a rainy day. Very unfortunate because then anything could have happened. I don't think I was seeing clearly or thinking clearly, but we were heading home. Him at the back seat strapped, and me, at the wheel crying, and him, of course, oblivious of why the mommy is crying. But I cried all the way home, not because I, it was just profound and heavy, like for any other parent, much as, of course, you are being diagnosed for something. The news itself was very heavy. Grief, not because I didn't want it to be, but grief because I kind of knew it's going to be a journey ahead, moving on. I kind of felt that, it's going to be a bit tough. And the experience, of course, was different with the little ones, but then I can say it was a mix of both relief that now we know what is going on, but also grief that then the world is not, we are not ready for the world. No, the world is not ready for my child. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And then, and now you conceive, you are blessed with twins. What did you also notice on the twins? Was it this? Did they present the very same symptoms as the older brother, or they had different symptoms altogether?
You see, when they say that when you've met one autism person, you've met one autism person. Yes, that is exactly it. Because then, to be very honest, it was very different for them. And I think I was also parenting at a different point of view. My older one is heavily towards ADHD. The younger ones, then I was able to see so much of this autism, and you could see a few signs here and there. And again, similar to the older one, much as you can see, much as you have a hunch as a parent that there's a gap, the diagnosis is just very stressing on its own because one, you've lived a bit of it, much as he responded quite quickly to early intervention. But secondly, these are now two individuals, two individuals going through an autism diagnosis. And secondly, of course, there are issues I could tell from the start. They had other different issues. For them, their milestones were also delayed. There was delayed walking, There was delayed babbling, There was, delayed, response to their name when you call them. Then for one, I would say there was early regression because they were responding earlier on. You could call their name and they go like, and turn. But suddenly all that went away. And so that then I did not know that was a regression. But in hindsight, then you realize that it was actually, the signs were actually there. We just hadn't probably picked out all of them. Up until now, we got a formal diagnosis because I remember when we were at the pediatrician and then I was told that, when I said, she's talking, she used to respond to her name, she used to sing. Then the pediatrician was like, yes, in fact, that really points towards the gap because then it simply means that they've lost skills. So the experience was a bit different, but that is how we picked it, because then at first they were responding and then suddenly everything was lost. But they had delayed milestones. They delayed a bit in walking and they delayed a bit in how they interacted with the environment. So you could tell that it's a bit different. Yeah.
So
So
would you?
it's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say that because of now, you already had an experience or a first hand in autism? Now you have twins who are also autistic. Would you say that the diagnosis having that diagnosis on the twins was maybe a bit better because now you know which animal you're dealing with, or you had to go through the very same grief that you had to with your older son?
It wasn't better for sure. I can say you're better prepared in terms of probably a bit of knowledge. And then again, the kids are like over 5 years apart. So the experience then or the experience and the experience now is very different. So no, and I remember even the doctor mentioned something like that because the primary pediatrician was like, you know what, at least you've been on this journey before. We did early intervention and it worked because for my older one, it resolved in a very short period. He was able to pick his speech in a very short period. So he was like, you know what, at least you've been in this experience before, so it should be okay. But unfortunately, that was not the case because then the grief is as fresh as being told for the first time because this is a different human being. And like I said, they presented differently. And also other gender issues. We also have a girl now who presents differently. It's not the same as how the boys would present. The challenges are different. So I know it was not better. Maybe I was just maybe more informed, but the grieving was not any different, to be very honest, because I felt like now I'm doing this again. And because I was aware of the challenges that autistic individuals experience, I was even more worried because then I was very alive. I was not going to chance. I knew very well how the society is. I knew very well how the systems were. And so I knew it's an uphill task. So I cannot say it was better, but I was just probably being told from a bit of an informed point of view.
No, I
Yeah.
understand. Truly, truly.
Yeah.
So now you have the diagnosis. All your kids are neurodivergent. How do you integrate them into the system? Is it an easy thing? Is it easy to have an autistic child in Kenya?
Oh no. No, it doesn't matter what demographic you're in. It doesn't matter. It's not an easy task to be a parent. It's not necessarily a money issue. Money plays an important role, but it does not matter. It's not easy to have autism, autistic child, because then the issues are similar probably to what we have in other spaces, because the stigma is still there. Yeah, the systems are still as dysfunctional as any other, probably African space. Let me compare to African countries, but the systems are still dysfunctional. The stigma is still there. The support is still lacking. Yeah. And so it's not easy at all. And because also the diagnosis process as well is just a handful on its own. So even prior to getting the final diagnosis, you already gone through challenges. And early intervention and all the intervention that is required also requires resources, be it time, be it money, be it you equipping yourself with knowledge. It's really, I wouldn't say it's an easy task. It is not easy being a parent of an autistic child or a caregiver of an autistic child.
Speaking of support, how are you supported in this whole journey?
I'll be honest and say that I have learned to create my own village. I've learned to, and probably I'm speaking from a point of privilege because then I have become an advocate in very many ways, and so I have learned to create my own village because then rarely does the village come to you when you have or you're speaking about disability. I cannot say that I do not have a supportive space, but I think the lack of understanding, the stigma still that is there, then makes fewer and fewer people either equipped or available to support you. And so, yes, I get support. Yes, I'm able to meet some of their needs financially. Yes, there are available options as far as government interventions are concerned. But then, of course, it's not the same because you find yourself that you probably need help all the time, but it's not there. So I've just learned to create my village, especially when it comes to emotional support. I have people who actually understand. Yeah, because then much as you're close say, to a sibling, close to your parents, if they have not walked in that shoe, they do not necessarily get what your needs are. But I've learned to create a village of parents who understand me, and so that is what has helped me more than actually now having an automatic support system around me. I've created one for myself. Yeah. And it's lacking generally for many parents, at least from where I come from. You'll find because of the stigma that many seclude themselves. So it could be an issue that you yourself have secluded yourself, so you have no support. It could also be an issue that people don't understand what you're going through. They'd rather not be involved, and so you have no support at all. So it's both dynamics. Yeah, you hide yourself, you hide away from society and parent in your own way, or also people are not equipped enough to support you either way. So you find yourself in a space that is very secluded. Yeah.
And then what would you say is the biggest challenge faced as a parent that is raising kids or a child, more especially who's neurodivergent? Because I understand that there are so many disabilities, and we are not saying one disability is greater than the other, but we know for a fact that invisible disabilities like the neurodivergent community, they are mostly overlooked at, not actually paid more attention to, because their disability is more, you need to actually investigate, or they need to show you something for you to actually realize that this person might have a disability, other than someone who has a visible disability, that you know that, okay, if maybe someone is working with a stick, you automatically know that that person might be blind or partially blind. If someone is using a wheelchair, you know that that person might not be able to walk. Then, but when it comes to neurodivergency, it's a total different story, because now you need to see the child's behavior, which is also misunderstood because of so many people are not actually on the know-how or on the knowledge of autism. So what would you say is your biggest challenge in terms of society and acceptance when raising a neurodivergent child?
The biggest challenge, as you've said, is society. Like I said, many of us eventually come to a point of acceptance. But yes, you've accepted your child. But has the society accepted your child? More often than not, it is the answer is no. Yeah, and so the challenge starts from one, as I mentioned, there's a lot of stigma surrounding disability in general. And so when you bring in the fact that that form of disability is within your space, even within your family, then people feel like we don't necessarily have to talk about it so loudly. Let's deal with it the way how best we can. Yeah. Secondly, like you said, being an invisible disability, then you find that you have to explain why your child is the way your child is the way they are. Yeah, because it is not obvious for anyone. Yeah. If you're in a space that probably children are being told to sit down, yours is most likely all over the place, bouncing off walls, cannot be told to sit down. So you first have to explain that, you know what, he's doing this because of this and that. For them now, even let you, be able to parent the way, or maybe give you an allowance for your child to probably be as they are. So the fact that you still have to explain that autism looks and shows up in this way is one of the biggest challenges, because then it is not apparent. It's not apparent to everybody how autism manifests, and so it is probably the biggest challenge has been that the society is not as accepting as it is for probably other visible disabilities.
And then in terms of the government or policies in your country, would you say
Yeah.
that they are actually now trying to intervene, and are they fostering inclusion, or it's more of, even now you still need to advocate for your child?
I don't think we're at a level where you don't have to advocate. We are still not there. Yeah, advocacy, even it's a daily thing, and so we are a progressive country, I must say, both in terms of our constitution, both in terms of some of the laws and policies, and many of them have been revised with as time moves on. So we currently have a new Persons with Disability Act. It's a revised version, and so that one actually recognizes other forms of disability as well. And so you're able actually to hinge on that, much as they're still developing the guidelines, we are able to hinge on that and probably be able to get support. And also in that, also it proposes some form of tax relief for caregivers. And so we are hoping to see how that pans out. So we are progressing, we're not where we are, but we are getting some reliefs here and there. Our government currently actually is able to support you if you're registered. You're being as a person with disability, you're actually able to be supported for some few sessions of therapy per year. Yeah, if you have a disability, what we call in our context a disability certificate. So that means you must be assessed through the government processes, get a certificate, be registered, then you're able to be supported. So there are many other forms. If you're registered, you also get sometimes support in terms of diapers, specific medication. It's not that it is available year on or year round, but when it's available, you're able to access it as a person with disability. And so such small pockets of support, then you're able to access if you can. Yeah. We're also in a process of a bill has been tabled that is autism specific. As it is right now, it's very blind. It's very blind to the real reality. It's overly medicalized, and so that is where we are. But there are attempts, and there are attempts by various people, advocates, policy makers, other players in the space, just to be to try and see how best we can foster some level of inclusion in society. But we are not there yet, and so the advocacy continues because we cannot say we are there as a society, particularly for the invisible disabilities. We are not there yet. Yeah.
So we might, in my country, in South Africa,
Mhm.
one
Mhm.
thing that has always been and still is a challenge is school placement for kids who are actually neurodivergent. Because as
Yeah.
much as there is special needs schools, a
Mhm.
neurodivergent child actually cannot just go to any special needs school because they face
Mhm.
a huge risk of regression. So they need to have their own school for autistic kids. So that is where the challenge is. We have few schools, and most of our private schools are expensive. Like you need to actually pull out an arm and a leg for your child to actually have education. And in South Africa, we believe that if a child doesn't go to school or getting any education, it's a form of abuse because it's actually their right to have
Yeah.
education. But how will they have education if there is no facilities to offer that education? So one of our biggest struggles here in South Africa is actually schools. How are schools there in Kenya?
It's a similar challenge, to be very honest, because much as for us we do not necessarily have, particularly from the government perspective, we don't have autism specialist schools. Yeah, they are special needs schools in general. Yeah, and so then you have to find placement in these establishments. They are not as many as we do want. They're not spread out geographically as we would need. And thirdly, the capacity of those who run those institutions is not where it should be, particularly to be able to handle matters of autism. So you'll find that most of the teachers in these special units have been trained on special needs. Yeah, but we all know that autism is a very different ballgame altogether. So if you follow the government pathway, then you'll find that you probably have a teacher who's equipped around special needs, but probably does not understand autism. And it's very common because then some of them have a certification, some of them do not have. And so it's one of those that sometimes you fall into lack by finding a teacher who's equipped, or also get a teacher who's not equipped. But as far as the government is concerned, we don't have special schools for autism, but we have special needs units in government schools where now you're expected to actually have your child integrated amongst other pupils. So it has its pros heavily on the cons, because then, like you said, the regression is a major issue, because then you find that many parents will tell you that their kids regressed. Other disabilities, you find that sometimes they have progress, particularly some specialist schools around cerebral palsy. You'll find that maybe they have a specific niche and people are able to support them around that area. But autism, you have a better outcome if you're on the private pathway, yeah, private school pathway, yeah. And even for those private schools, we have autism specific schools and we have integrated schools that are private. but they cost an arm and a leg. Yeah, mine have gone through the private system, and boy, I tell you, for more than one child, it's not easy, because then what I ended up in is the Montessori system. It is not cheap in any space to be in the Montessori system. Yeah, and so it matters. It helps. It matters. It gives the child better outcomes. How many parents are able to afford that? Yeah. I might be speaking from a point of privilege, because then I'm able to sacrifice this and that and have my kids in this space. But other parents have to rely probably on the under-equipped government facilities, or have to rely on other integrated spaces they can afford, who accept your child but are not necessarily equipped in handling autism, but they are happy to accept your child. So those are some of the balances you find yourself doing as a parent of autism, autistic child in the country, because then our education space is not where it should be. And that's why we are trying to see whether this autism bill that is being put in place can actually address some of these issues, so that we have better centers, and also have better education placements that actually fit our children, and so that someone does not have to cough up so much to be able to take their children through schools. We have so many children who are at home, yeah, for this reason, because you can sometimes even afford to take your child to a school, yeah, but they're not accepted, or they become like, depending on how their autism manifests, probably if they are level 3, they are not able to cope with school. And so we've had, in fact, very recently in one of our groups, we had a parent in one of the most prestigious schools in the country say that they've been rejected in that school. You see, this is a school that costs so much. Yeah, many of us cannot afford to go there. Yet their child was told that they no longer have a space in that school. So that's the lived reality. You might actually have the money, but not you're not able to actually find a good place for your child. Yeah, so it's both ways. Yeah.
And we understand that early intervention is very important. And an autistic child needs more than 2 therapists, depending on the level that they are on the spectrum. But you won't find that the child only uses one; they use 2 upwards. So how are those interventions? Do you guys have enough therapists? Do you guys have enough speech therapists, occupational therapists, ABA, STEAM, whatever that works that side? And how is the access? Is the access easy?
I think the access would be the point in question, because we have a number of trained specialists, to be very honest. How many have been deployed through the government system also remains a bit limited. How many are in the private space? Very many, yeah. But then again, how many people are able to afford that? Because you'll find, even if you post in a space and just ask, I'm looking for a therapist, someone will tell you they're a therapist, yeah. So the challenge is that geographically, it's unevenly distributed. You'll find more of them in the city centers as opposed to the rural areas. Secondly, in terms of government access, even if the therapist is available, the new people must be queued. You must be, distributed. So you might find that, yes, they are there, but you access therapy probably once a week because of the numbers. You're not the only person, yeah, who's available that's a disabled child. And so what happens is that then you have many parents have gone the private way. Yeah, many have gone the private way because looking at the number of therapies that you've been recommended for, are most likely that you have to have 2 or more in a week. Yeah, accessing that through the free scheme it's not possible because we have many numbers. So many people go through the private option, and you'll find that still is not very affordable for everyone. Not everyone can afford to have more than one therapy for their child. And I think what is more affordable is things like probably you can try and afford occupational therapy, you can try and afford speech therapy, but ABA, which is recommended and is also the gold standard, is still out of reach for many parents, including myself. Having twins on the spectrum, it's just, I had the course and I just thought, you know what, maybe not now, because are the children going to eat or are they going to go for therapy? Yeah. So, and I must say that even in our government space, ABA is not one of the therapies that are offered for free. What is offered for free is speech and is speech and occupational therapy, and there are limited sessions. So you still find that you still have to dig into your pocket to afford all the therapy that a child might require. Yeah.
Yo, I'm so
Sorry.
sorry. I don't know what's happening on my throat. But to continue, so if there is a parent now who's in Kenya, they see that mm, my child's development is not up to par, what advice would you give them? Where must they start?
First, I would tell any parent who is having suspicions to trust their gut. Trust your gut, because more often than not, and I'll speak from a mother's point of view, we have you have a hunch, you have a gut feeling that something is off. Yeah, but you get dissuaded by the society in terms of give it time. Sometimes even our own medical practitioners also just tell you, give it time, give it time. So I would tell parents, for starters, trust your gut. You'd rather go and be told there's no issue than to have a wait and see attitude. So anyone who presents with any suspicion, those who speak to me, those who come to my inbox, I'm just like, you know what? If you feel that there's a gap, there's no harm in going and having a consultation. Get that consultation. Whether it leads to assessment is a different story. Yeah. But trust your gut, because early intervention might be the best thing that you do for your child. Yeah. The earlier you intervene, the better. We've seen so many kids who are, parents are coming into the realization much later after, the child is probably over 10 or something like that. And so we've seen different outcomes and better outcomes for those that start early. So trust your gut. You feel something is wrong, there is no harm in getting a consultation. Get it fast, and then from there, you can now move on. And it can be at the very basic level. First, get a consultation. Who will then refer you? Like in our country, we have very few developmental pediatricians. Yeah. And so access to them might be very difficult. But I always tell parents, start from where you can. Yeah. Go consult a pediatrician who will then refer you if there's an issue. If there's none, then you're cleared. But if there's an issue, then you have to move up the process towards assessment, be it by a neurologist who's a pediatrician, or a psychologist, or a development practitioner. But at least you've started on the journey. So parents, trust your gut. You see something is wrong, you have suspicions, follow through and get the answers that you require. It makes a difference for our children.
So, having 3 kids who are on the spectrum, obviously, the spectrum means that everyone is different and their needs and support is actually different from each and every child. So, what will be the greatest stigma or the greatest misunderstanding of autism that you've seen it's carried out through the society that you want to actually correct?
There are quite a number. Maybe I'm just going to point out 2 or 3. Number one, that is very strong, even in our country context, is that vaccines cause autism. Yeah. And in every space you're in, anytime there's a discussion about vaccines, you'll see that many people are going to speak about it. And so that's one of the things that probably I would want to demystify around the causes of autism, because then I think scientifically we've seen that this has been proved otherwise, that, this is no longer said to be the cause, but that is one of the biggest myths that we have in our country. Secondly, it's around the fact that people believe that, bad parenting is, a factor in play when it comes to autism. And so you'll find that many, especially the mothers, are put on blame in terms of they could be the cause, yeah, of the way their child is behaving. Either you're not too strict enough, either you did something, either you took something during your pregnancy, either you didn't do something right during your pregnancy. And so that is also number 2, some of the myths that I'd like to demystify around the fact that parenting, whichever way you parent, actually contributes to your child's autism. Yeah, I'd also like to demystify that fact. Thirdly, around myths is also sorry. I think maybe I can highlight those two for now that I find probably are the hugest challenges in our space in terms of what causes it and also how autism can come about. That is what really causes stigma around us. Yeah.
So you also said that you're not only a parent, but you're also an advocate to GBV, to autism, disability, and all of that. Why?
Yeah.
What made you start advocating? What pushed you to start to say, you know what, I'm not going to just sit, I'm going to foster change. If it means me being the sacrificial lamb, I'm willing to go all out.
I think top thing is the realization that being quiet does not help. Yeah. Complaining in my corner does not help at all. Yeah. And so again, it might be from a point of privilege because you see, when other needs are addressed, then you have time to focus on this. Another parent might probably be struggling with just where to take their child for therapy. And so you don't expect that parent to actually be out there in the streets making noise and challenging government. They have bigger issues to deal with. Yeah. And so for me, just the fact that I just thought, you know what, I am complaining, there's not this. There's not that. I'm complaining the wait time is too long. Yeah, I'm complaining we can't get assessed the way we want. We can't just walk in and get assessed. I am complaining there's no way to take our children for therapy. I am complaining therapy is too expensive. But what am I doing about it? Yeah. And most importantly, when I am not here, because right now probably our kids are managing because then we are able to structure the environment for them. Yeah, as parents, we are able to, take them to this school, take them to this place, have the right people around them, get them all the therapy they need. But when you're not there, then who steps in if you're not changing the society? So if you don't change the structures, contribute to us changing the structures, you don't contribute to us changing the policies, you don't contribute towards demystifying myths, you do not contribute towards stigma reduction, then when you're not there, where does your child live? Yeah. Who are you leaving them with, who you've not tried to actually change their perceptions around autism? And so that is something that drove me, especially when the twins were diagnosed, because then it meant that you have two children, both from a financial and, just emotional point of view. It's a lot. Yeah. So how do you ensure that the society is accepting of them? How do you ensure that they are able to live their lives in a dignified way beyond your time on this earth? And so that is what is really my driving force in terms of advocacy, because I've been an advocate in other spaces, HIV, TB, malaria, human rights. I've been an advocate, but in a space that I actually wear the shoe, I have not been doing enough. And so I challenged myself in terms of I must at least do something for my kids. If I end up having a center for the children, then well and good. Then it means that then if I'm not there, my kids are able to access services here. Other kids are able to access the same services there. They are able to advocate for themselves as well. Parents are able to actually, handle autism as they should. They are able to access services as they should. So that has been my driving force, the fact that silence does no good. Yeah, it does no good in terms of keeping quiet. We have to speak up. Yeah.
And what vision do you have in terms of the whole advocacy? Where do you want your voice to reach? And what's the biggest change that you want to achieve?
There are many little, but the top one is a society that is more accepting. Yeah. A society that is able to see our children and any other autistic individual for who they are. A society that is not trying to change them. Yeah. A society that has been sensitized enough to know how to manage autism. Yeah. Without someone having to advocate for themselves. So my biggest vision is a society that enables our children and any other autistic individual live a dignified life, be accepted, be supported, and be let to be who they are within society.
So, okay, we left with 5 minutes now. Is there anything that you think it's important that we didn't cover that maybe you think it's a necessity, to educate, to bring awareness, to let parents in and know that they are not alone?
Yes, I think I'll start first from a structural point of view in terms of if there's any other player, any other policy maker who's probably going to is listening to this, is that it's important that you develop these policies, these structures, these laws, involve the autistic individuals, involve the caregivers, involve the families. Do not develop interventions for autistic individuals. Do not develop for them. Develop with them so that it's actually impactful. For parents and caregivers, my biggest thing that I've always told any other parent is just to take it a day at a time. It is easier said than done, to be very honest. Yeah, but having lived it, it actually makes sense to break down into small portions and live one day and count your blessing and achievement for one day and move on to the next day. And so my biggest advice is just, take it one day at a time and show up for your child. I tell parents, there's always something you can do. Money or not, there's always something you can do. Yeah. If it means having your child outside on the sand playing in the mud, because that is the best you can do in terms of sensory, then do it. If it means researching on your phone about autism, then do it. If you're unable to reach an autism therapy center, do what you can within the space. There's always some engagement you can do for your child. And most importantly, let's take care of ourselves so that we're able to take care of our children. Because then you can never pour from an empty cup. I know most of us have empty cups, but trust me, it gets so hard when you're actually parenting a child and you've not taken care of your needs. Yeah.
And taking care of your needs, what do you do to let down? Just to let your head
Like I
down?
said,
What is it that where's your go-to?
like I said, I've created my village. Yeah. I'm not necessarily a talker, but just being in that space where people are speaking about their issues makes it helpful for me. I've created WhatsApp groups, I've created an online space. I do lives where we speak about everything and anything. And so I've created a space where I'm able to actually just hear stories and also sometimes speak about mine. And I find it to be very therapeutic. For me as an individual, I exercise a lot. I walk a lot. It's amazing how much I got into just being able to walk out there and free my mind. And so I take regular walks while listening to my music for a minimum of an hour. And anytime I am back home, I have reset. Whether it's just for that day, it gives me a form of reset. And so my go-to has always been exercise and music, but also the fact that I've been able to create a small village for myself where I just check in, whether it's to laugh at what people are talking about, whether it's to share, whether it's to advise based on my experience. It is therapy for me when I'm engaging with other parents. Yeah.
Okay. So please do share your social media handles where people, maybe from Kenya, maybe there is a parent that wants to reach out, or there's a parent that is going through something that they say that, you know what, I think I want to reach out to this person because, as you said, that it's easy for someone to relate when they actually, you guys are working the same journey. So for a parent or whoever caregiver out there, when they want to reach out, where they can find you.
As I said, I'm an advocate and I've founded an organization known as Thriving Thoughts. And so you can reach out through the Thriving Thoughts handles. You can engage on social media through Thriving Thoughts. And so it is at Thriving Thoughts .ke, both on Facebook, on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram, and also on the website. It's www.thrivingthoughts.org, but the handle is at thrivingthoughts.ke.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the time and the opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to see this face finally. I know we've been talking for over a
I'm
year.
surprised. I'm surprised you haven't, because I think we've been in various engagements. I think some of the socializations that we do where we actually have our cameras off, and so maybe we've not been in the same space, but it's also nice
Yeah.
to know that we can actually not pass it around the streets anymore.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
true. That is true. So I want to say thank you so much for honoring the invite. Thank you so much for answering the call when I said, please, I need an interview with you. And you said, you know what, I'm available. I thank you so, so much. You are appreciated and you are loved here. And yeah, I
Thank you
just
so
wanted to
much for
say
having me
thank you
too.
so much for honoring the invite. So that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so, so much. Please don't forget, you need to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you guys later. Bye.